Hello, everyone. It is Friday, September 14th. This is Kops office hours. We have a couple of items on our agenda. If you haven't yet added stuff on the agenda that you would like to talk about, please do so. Please add your name at the top. Otherwise, I propose that we just get right into it. Oh, things are moving around. So I think, Eric, the roadmap for 1.11 and 1.12 is you?
Yeah,
You want to go?
sure. Sure. So there's a PR that's linked in the agenda that I sort of take it upon myself to try to identify these out-of-date roadmaps and get some stuff on them that makes sense, so that people have some idea about what's going on in terms of the release cycle and what we intend to provide. And I wanted to try to get some agreement about that. This week, so that we could start cutting 1.11 and then also planning for 1.12. This is Justin's looking through it right now, it looks like, but it's extremely rough. I was trying to remove sort of things that we'd already done or decided not to do or have been surpassed, and then throw down some very, very general ideas. I want comments from the community and some buy-in on some of these ideas. So I think a big one here is at CD3 about I think we've sort of talked about it and push things off a little bit, but can we get an agreement about what we're going to do and write it down? Justin?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I was just, because I was sharing the screen to show it, I was struggling to find the mute button. I think if we're able to turn on etcd manager by default, which I think we're able to do, there are definitely some issues, but I think we're able to turn it on by default in the next release, and I think that should be at least my goal for 1.11, and it might determine timelines. But if we're able to turn on etcd manager by default, then I think we should make etcd3 the default for new clusters, and yeah, so we should make it the default for new clusters. The people left on etcd2 will be everyone that has an existing cluster, and the intention is that it is easy and verified that you can update to etcd3.
Gotcha.
But you're not forced to do so until I think 1.13 is going to be the one that deprecates it. So that is when we will, I guess, we'll force etcd manager on in 1.12.
So would it be forced on, and then it'd be like a forced upgrade at that point?
When we get to 1.13, I don't think we're gonna have a choice.
Yeah.
etcd3 is just not gonna. etcd2 is just not gonna work. And so at 1.13, yes, it will be forced on, and it will be a forced upgrade at that point. So yeah. The current blocker, I think there's some relatively minor issues. I don't have any correctness issues yet. The issues are an HA rolling upgrade has only a 1 in 3 chance of working because you have to because it depending on which one is killed, depending on sort of one HA upgrade path. When you turn on the manager first and then go from etcd2 to etcd3, is unlikely to work without a force on your rolling upgrade. So we need to either just document that or come up with a workaround, and that's just to do with sort of the leader and refresh cycles on status. So I need to think about that. The much bigger one, that's not a huge one. The much bigger one is Calico is currently talking directly to etcd, and there's a third one as well. Talking directly to etcd, and so we need to integrate Calico into the upgrade in some way. And I think probably the best way to do that is actually to switch Calico to use their newer API-driven one, so they don't talk to etcd, which I think that is a better approach. It means we don't have to open etcd to the world if you're using, open etcd to your nodes if you're using Calico. So I think that's great. And then the third thing is TLS support, which we need to get working as well. So I think that is my goal. Whether that's all feasible for the 1.11 timeline, I don't know, but I would like to try to make it happen. We'll see what else has to happen in 1.11.
So as for etcd manager, that work is being tracked in the Copio org, right?
It is currently. That's just sort of a holding place for it. I think,
Sure.
I guess at SIG cluster lifecycle, I guess we can ask for it to, or I can ask to make it a sub-project of SIG cluster lifecycle on Tuesday, I guess.
Sure. Is there anywhere that we can track these issues? Should we be tracking these in Kops, or should we, so we have some way to record where we're going, so we can get this stuff done and give you a hand on this?
Yeah, I will write down those issues at least. But yeah, please.
Awesome. Yeah, those sound like high priority, but they sound like things that people could probably pitch in and help with.
So it's HA, Calico, TLS, and then going to incubator, move to cluster, Kubernetes SIGs under SIG cluster lifecycle. So yeah.
Cool. Okay, so that sounds good for 1.11.
That's my goal, yeah. And then we can make etcd, if we have etcd manager on, anyone that has etcd manager on, it's easy enough to upgrade and downgrade. So when you have etcd manager on, we can make etcd3 the default. And then I would like to make etcd manager the default for new clusters. So that's sort of the way that's sort of the sequence, I guess.
Got it.
And the sort of the forcing function is, if 113 is going to turn off etcd3, it's going to turn off etcd2, then we sort of need to be making progress towards getting that forced on for people, so we have enough mileage on it.
Yeah, I think we should be recommending at least throwing some sort of a notice and trying to push people in that direction.
Yeah, and lots more E2E coverage and all that. So I'm also working on some E2E tests that will turn on etcd to start a cluster and then turn on etcd manager and go from 2 to 3 and go to HA to non-HA and all those sort of things.
Cool.
What is the current state of etcd manager, or where is it documented?
It's documented, so it's in this Copio repo. It's documented, the integration with Kops is, I think, primarily documented on our roadmap, or etcd roadmap page. If I can just find that. I think I'm still showing my screen.
Yeah, it's in docs.
Docs etcd, is that right?
Yeah, this is one of my other issues as well. I guess we can probably talk about this. This is one of my other agenda points as well, is this roadmap for etcd manager, which is out of date, and I was wondering if we should converge it with the main roadmap. Although, I guess that it's probably going to live on as a separate concern, and so maybe it needs to be separate. Yeah, the roadmap is badly out of date.
Okay. Yes. I mean, yeah. I think that this is still we're still on track with the roadmap, right? One of them. etcd manager default?
Sure, just Kops 1.9 and 1.10 are.
Oh, they're no longer roadmap. Yes.
And they're not right.
Okay. Oh yeah, because etcd3 the default is not. Yes, correct. Yeah. So we didn't make etcd3 the default yet. All right. Yeah. Okay. I'm not sure whether. I think etcd backup is easily enabled, but still not the default. But yes.
Cool.
All right. I don't know if there's, and then so back on your PR. I think that was that was the big thing, wasn't it, Eric?
Yeah, I think that gives me some clarity there. For 112, I just threw down some 112 I can update now, yeah, I think obviously we need to be supporting 1.12. We definitely need a bunch of work on our documentation. I think that it needs to be audit, because there's a lot of stuff that's old or not relevant, or things are inconsistent between different places. I think we have a lot of documentation now, which is very different than when I started working with Kops, but it's too much almost, and it's very difficult to use, I think. So I'd like to get some work on that, and I have some ideas of how we can do that. And then I also think we need to update our sort of recommendations for new instance types and new sizes and things like that. I think we've learned, things have changed since we wrote those originally. Oh,
and the image change as well.
Is that for 111?
Well, it's not for 111. We should deprecate. We should announce the roadmap. We should put the roadmap on. I think 112 we should try to default to stretch.
Yeah, I agree.
But we should continue to support Jesse. But it's just because of the NVMe issues, I feel like that's a good default.
Got it. For 111 though, are we going for, we're defaulting Jesse? Or, I mean, I think everything is fixed in the pipeline now, right?
We can have a look, I guess. As long as it's a default for new clusters, I think that's reasonable. I think it's reasonable. Trying to think whether, well, anyone have any opinions? I think we talked about this last time. I can't remember whether we decided to do it in 111 or not.
I think we said we were going to try to do it if possible.
Okay.
But
I'm
happy to hear what everybody else to say.
Let's try it.
Default for new. I would suggest default for new clusters.
I was going to say, I don't know. I like the idea of it being in the alpha channel. I know that's like pre-stable, but I don't know.
And it would be a default for new clusters on the new Kubernetes version anyway, right? Yeah. We don't have, so we wouldn't change the default for 110 for Kubernetes 110 clusters. So it would be only, I think that's what we do. We would change the default for 111 clusters using
correct.
Right.
So it's
so
only
that would
new
go to
clusters.
stretch. Yeah. So it would have to be a new cluster on 111. That sounds good to me.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. And yeah, we should try that and make sure that if we come across anything, we can move it to 112. But I think that's a reasonable approach.
Yep.
At
CD3, line 42 can go away, for sure. After that,
there's a new version. It's actually apt because there's a new version of etcd that fixes more issues. So we probably should update the etcd. etcd is accurate.
Okay.
And then I think there is also like thinking about adopting the machines or the machines API and the cluster API.
Yeah.
And that's not really targeted to a release, but it's certainly something that's happen over the next year.
Maybe we can have just sort of like a section for, general ideas that we're working to incorporate, but are not tied to any specific release, because there's a few things like I want to rewrite the networking spec or make a networking spec for a networking object. I think that would help us solve some of the problems that I find offensive in the networking side. And then also, things like Kops server and machine API, stuff like that. So I'm happy to pull that into like a separate section if that would be appropriate for y'all.
I think a separate section for like longer term goals is a great idea, because then it's less.
Cool.
Like we can put in support for different clouds in there as well, right?
Awesome.
Really aligned.
Cool. That sounds great. I'm happy to. I can finish this off and submit a new version this afternoon.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric.
Yep.
All right. Eric, 111 Alpha 1, an estimated release schedule. We should do 111 Alpha 1
today.
We'll do that this weekend. How about that? And then as for release schedule,
I think we need at least 1 week for Alpha, at least 1 week for Beta.
Yeah, I think the challenge is going to be the work that I would like to happen on things like etcd manager and bundles, and where we slot that in.
Yeah.
So maybe we put etcd manager into one. Well, we have etcd manager support today. Maybe we make it the default in 112, so we don't.
Yeah.
We don't.
That's the problem. So I think that we need to move quickly and get something out. I think we should try to catch up, in my opinion. And I'd be interested to see what our folks have to say. But I think it's useful to catch up, even if we don't provide every single feature, like right off the bat. It's helpful to catch up with the release cycle, so people aren't trying to like hack Kops to make their stuff work.
Okay.
I actually agree. There's a lot of people asking for backports of things, even into just one thing. And I think it'd be great to just cut a 111, and then hey, if something awesome comes out, people really really wanted 111, we just backport it.
Okay.
And then otherwise we drive forward. I would say that, but that's just fine.
Agreed.
And we can also try doing an automated release. I know we tried that before, and I think we might be able to do an automated release of Kops. So we'll try it.
Let me know when you're going to do it, because I'm very interested in that. Thanks, Justin.
Well, it should be boring, right? It should be like we're just going to run it and there it appears. But yeah, we'll see.
It's okay. I'll sit around and ask you questions for half an hour then. Okay, I'm good on my issue. Somebody else can talk.
I like the idea of catching up, though. I think that makes sense. So we will try not to put too much into 111. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Okay. I think the interesting thing has been the image version of etcd manager is sort of awkward without bundles. So that's been one of the things that I've been worried about. But we can put in a big release note in for people that pre-adopt etcd manager before bundles. If we put bundles into 112, Kops 112. Okay.
Is it totally unfeasible to? I think it's definitely preferable right now to sort of try to stick to some sort of regular release cycle and, try to act a little bit more like the regular, like Kubernetes upstream repo, where if you get your feature and you get it in, if not, like we don't hold up the release for that feature, obviously. But is there a way that we can, kind of do like a point release, like a patch release or is it not even worth it? Should we just like wait for the next release, do you think?
So we tend to use patch releases for bug fixes and not for features.
Yeah, well, of course.
And so the challenge here is that like etcd manager and bundles are features, but they also have this deadline.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I'm open to suggestions.
I think it's okay. And we've turned them there. You can use etcd manager today. I'll do some better docs about how to turn it on for people that want to, and we can try to make the etcd3 the default if you turn on etcd manager.
Okay.
And we'll see what the status of bundles is, because it would be nice to have a way to sort of be able to get the functionality of bundles for etcd manager. So it's to avoid the sort of lock-in. The issue is right now the way you turn on etcd manager is I'm trying to think. Actually, that's not true. I think so. Right now, the only way to get a new etcd manager image is to update Kops. That will be fixed by bundles. Today, we could fix it using channels, but we don't really want to. We don't do that. It's sort of without bundles, the version would be unpinned, and you'd sort of automatically get updates whenever it changed, or whenever you next did a Kops operation. So that's a little bit of a weird functionality, but we can talk about that more in the bundle section. It looks like we have one more coming, which is Chris. Do you want to talk about etcd manager and operator status?
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, I was just wondering what's the status after all. So it was just like it exists, mystical thing, but no idea about it.
Yeah, so we definitely want to link those docs so it's clearer. I think we should probably have like how to get to etcd3 document, like more of a user-guided thing. But it exists. It works subject to those caveats that we talked about, HA, Calico, and TLS. Sorry, HA, not a function, they're just it's sort of too cautious right now, so it doesn't. You have to sort of force the rolling update to get an HA update to work. Yeah, I think that's sort of the current status, and yeah, I would like to get it. I'd like to get it turned on by default so we can start to get a lot more testing on it. But work is ongoing.
Sounds like something I didn't know.
Okay. All right. Shall I talk about bundles a little bit?
Can I ask one? Hey, Justin, can I ask one naive question? You mentioned that Calico uses etcd directly. Is the same true for Canal?
Canal is flannel. I don't think so. I think Canal uses flannel. And
it's flannel plus Calico.
Plus network policy. And I think the network policy, it's in firewall. So it's somewhere in firewall. I think it's in firewall.go. I will find out. I don't think it's the case. It is not. It is only Calico. This is the problem. So it's only Calico, and Flannel does not. Canal does not have a special exception.
Okay.
Although I guess it could be talking to it directly on the master. I don't think it is. But anyway, that's a good question. I don't think that's the case, but it may be.
I think you're right. I've looked into this as well.
Where's Canal? Where's the? That's weird. We do ship Canal, don't we?
Yeah, it's in there.
I just missed the manifest. Oh, well, I will have to look. I'll have to look when I'm not on the spot. Okay. Anyway, so bundles. So this is actually topical. So imagine that there's a new version of Calico or Canal that doesn't talk to etcd directly, and we want to update that version. So today we have to, because the manifest is embedded into Kops, we have to. I'm just trying to show. Because the manifest is embedded into Kops, we would have to do a new release of Kops. We have something called channels, which is a sort of file where we get around this for AMIs and Kubernetes versions, where we were able to recommend those without doing any release of Kops. The idea of a bundle is the idea of taking a concept like channels and having a manifest file that includes all the add-ons in it. And then we're able to pull out the add-ons that we need. And the idea is that then that manifest can be released separately from Kops. And so you can get a fixed version of Calico without having to get a new version of Kops. So when Calico does a fix, we can update the bundle, and users get the newer version or without having to download a new version of Kops. So we don't have to persuade everyone to go get a new version of Kops, which is great. Some people from GKE have released a specification which is based on what they do inside GKE, sort of some of their learnings. It's a Google Cloud Platform K8s cluster bundle. So if we use this format, the idea is that then we won't have to do it all on our own, but rather we'll all be able to share a bundle, a set of manifests for our add-ons. So if you imagine that you're a Calico developer and you update a new version, you don't have to go update the Kops repo and the kubeadm repo and Kubernetes Anywhere repo and the cluster API repos that are springing up, but rather you just update something which holds the bundle, and then everyone sort of picks it up from there. So, including GKE, I guess. Obviously, there will be some gates before it going straight into GKE, but that's sort of how the idea is that then everyone in the Kubernetes community will have a nice way to manage their add-ons or the declaration of their add-ons. That's the bundle. And so the idea of this PR is that we start using the bundle. There is a nuance in this, which is just because Calico has updated their the bundle doesn't mean that you want all your clusters to immediately get that version or immediately get that new version of Calico when you do a unrelated change to your cluster. Like, for example, if you were to change from M3 mediums to M4 mediums, you don't want to suddenly pick up a new version of Calico. And so the idea is that the cluster spec adds a new field, which thank you for that. The cluster spec adds a new field called bundle, which is sort of a particular version of the bundle, and that determines the versions of all the add-ons. So then what we'll do is we'll have the ability to sort of Kops create cluster will automatically pick up the latest bundle from the channels file that we still use, and Kops upgrade will recommend, and if you say yes, will automate updating the bundle. So updating the version of the bundle that you're using. So in this way, everything is still stable and pinned, and Kops commands continue to work just as if you had like stuck to a particular Kops binary, but you're able to also specify a particular version of the bundle and upgrade or downgrade at your own pace. Yeah.
Quick question on that.
The proposal.
Where who is creating these bundles? Is that something? Is it like a per? Like, is a cluster operator, an individual operator, able to create their own bundle?
So that is a good question. It's not yet determined. For now, Kops will obviously create our own bundle. Mm-hmm. I guess a future world would be that Calico publishes like their portion of the Calico bundle, or their add-on, their Calico specification as a bundle, and then we're able to sort of aggregate it up. And then a sort of future version is that when Kops and Kubanyware and all the other tools are all using the bundle, then we'll put the bundle in somewhere that's outside of any one particular installation tool, cluster management tool.
And would it be per version then? So you'd have versions pinned to some specific Kubernetes version?
That's not currently the case. I guess we certainly could. The bundle's earlier than that. So I'm thinking that we start by using it just for etcd manager. But yes, we're going to have either different bundles for each Kubernetes version or for a range of Kubernetes versions, or we're going to have in a particular bundle the ability to specify that particular manifests apply to particular Kubernetes versions. So today that's more what we have. And the primary reason why we have that, well, there are actually two reasons. The primary reason why we have that is because like API versions change over time, and and fields are added over time. And so, for example, in 1.6, we had to change the taints and tolerations. So the 1.5 and a 1.6 manifests were pretty different in terms of if they had to run on the master. The other issue is that we don't necessarily want to introduce a new functionality to we don't want to necessarily run the latest Calico on a 1.6 cluster if we're not testing that newer version of Calico. So that is a trickier problem, and that might be solved by pinning to an older version of the bundle, or it might be solved by having the bundle have both versions, and I honestly don't think we know what's going to happen yet. The usage that's proposed here is just to have etcd manager, which is actually just a pod that actually gets rendered as a static pod, have the manifest for etcd manager, so very stable, have that be in the bundle rather than being, it seems like a very safe place to start. And then I'm hoping we can start to get some of like core DNS, for example, would be a good one.
Yeah.
I don't think, of course, it's the default yet, so that would be a great one to put into the bundle as well.
This is cool. I was curious, could this also be used for something like we talked about recently, the AWS machines and whatnot that we were just working on today, actually?
Yeah, I think the same concept. I don't think there's as much. I don't think there's any need to to version the AWS machine database or this type of database. I was thinking, looking at the PR as you saw this morning, I presume, it would be great to get that. I was thinking that could be a new project under the SIG AWS. That could be a fairly small, simple project under SIG AWS. Right. Where we basically build a YAML file of all those machine types. I don't know any reason why it would be versioned. Maybe you do, but yeah. So I think the same idea as a bundle where we define a spec,
cool,
have some tooling to create it and publish it in a well-known location. So in other words, this would it's the same evolutionary path, right, as we're talking about here, except we're just going straight to. We're going to publish this YAML file and let everyone share it. But yeah, if you want to propose that on next Friday, then you'll get a big thumbs up from me on that.
All right.
I'm trying to think. So one thing that's annoying about this proposal is today, if you do a new version of Kops, you automatically get the new version of Calico that we bundled in, that we shipped with the new version of Kops. If we have a bundle and we ping to a bundle, you will not get the new version of Calico purely by upgrading Kops. You have to update the bundle field. We can do some of the things we do with versions of Kops to say, hey, you really need to upgrade, but that is a clear behavioral change from this proposal.
That it's a behavioral, in my opinion, it's a behavioral change that's for the better. That's something that we've wanted, and it gets us nervous. So yes. that's huge for us.
There is an upside, yes. You can present this in a positive way. You won't get a new version of Calico just because you update Kops. How about that?
Yeah, but on the other side, I see many people who don't know how to actually edit the Kops spec and everything, who will get stuck with it just because if they used to run Kops update, Kops upgrade cluster, and they're done. So I see kind of the issue with people who have no idea, who are just playing around with it. Like I see some people preparing trainings these days where just like, oh, we just build up a cluster with Kops, which is great. But then those people know, oh, it's like 3 commands and everything works. They've never seen the spec. They don't know it exists. So I see it rather dangerous of having lots and lots and lots of old, un-up-to-date clusters all around the world because people just don't know.
Well, yeah, and so yes, and we can. That's a good point, and we can. So it is already integrated in this PR into Kops cluster upgrade. So just as that will like say, hey, you should use a new AMI, or we recommend a new Kubernetes version, it will now recommend a new bundle version and apply that change for you, if you say yes. And then the other thing we can do, which we've reserved in the past for like pretty serious, like a security issue type issue in Kubernetes, is we've said, hey, this version of Kubernetes is really not recommended. We exit Kops unless you pass a magic environment variable which says I know what I'm doing. So we could do the same thing with the bundle where we say like required. I think we call it recommended version, required version. And if you're running an older version of the bundle than we require, we could do the same thing where we say this is a serious enough flaw that we bail. The challenge is that just because Calico has a flaw doesn't mean that everyone else in the world should have to upgrade.
I can actually think of like one command to just go to the most latest recommended version, like just update the spec to the latest Calico, whatever, to latest Kubernetes and everything. Like when you just see the error, you still don't know what to do. And the documentation doesn't really easily tell what to do as well. So maybe like Kops update something like Kops go to recommended or something would probably make it easier for lots of people. Also, by not looking up what's the actual recommendation. Just set the values from the spec, that would be it. Would probably make it way easier for so many people like Kops set did.
Yeah, so that is sort of what Kops cluster upgrade is supposed to do, but yes, we should certainly make that more discoverable, and we can sort of say, we have Kops, so there is Kops set support for this, and we can say, if we detect an older version, we can say, here are the 2 recommended actions. You can Kops cluster upgrade, or you can Kops set cluster.spec.bundle equals X. And we would actually populate X. That could be good. I'll write that down as a bundle.
Yeah, I think
all the people in my trainings who are like, I have no idea what I'm doing here, happily enough to work on a console. I see it blowing up so many times, and I'm scared of telling those people what to do all the time.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's some good points coming out here relating to like workflows, and I think that's something that I like kind of what Kubernetes.io has done with their docs over the last like version or 2, where they've created like sort of use cases and stories that you work through. And I think that we should think about restructuring our docs in that way, and then kind of create a list of these types of.
I think that would be great. I think if you have a look at, I think I did some GCE docs that are sort of more along those lines, and I think that would be great. I think I haven't yet been brave enough to try to tackle it for AWS, where the journey is much more, there's a lot more complexity in the networking.
There's a lot more options.
But yeah, if you want to have a look at the GCE docs, I think, if you want to try to take that on for AWS, that would be amazing. And it doesn't need to be that different, right? Hopefully most of the similarities in AWS, most of the differences, most of the workflow is Kops specific, at least in the beginning, rather than AWS versus GCE. Like, it's how do you create a cluster? How do you upgrade a cluster? How do you resize it? How do you delete it? How do you edit your instance groups? Things like that.
Yeah, exactly. There's sort of generic stuff. There's sort of tasks that you want to complete, and those tasks, they may have some different flags, but it's pretty much the same story.
Would it be worthwhile for Kops to have a upgrade -- dry run or similar, so that you could flush out all of these recommendations and sundry without committing to I'm going to roll your nodes now?
But isn't that going to happen if you don't specify yes?
Yes, so that's currently I did it that way.
Okay.
It might be nice to have, I don't know, have something more. The nice thing about dry run is it actually, like, you can use it to output YAML, which is nice. Whereas Kops cluster upgrade doesn't, it just has the weird yes or absence of yes, and then just does it. Kops cluster upgrade, though, doesn't apply your change. It doesn't actually update. It doesn't do a Kops update. So something that's confusing for people is after Kops cluster upgrade, you still have to do a Kops cluster update. So you can then get the YAML change, but a dry run would be a nice idea.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, having a way to output that at that point.
Yeah, it's not too hard either, so that sounds good. Because I guess, Jason, the use case would be you would do it, and then you would, I guess, put it into your Git repo, and you would do a diff type workflow, and you would see what it's actually changing before you propose the change, right?
In effect, yes. In effect, we keep the YAML in a Jinja 2 template that we drive, and then we run update -f blah 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 off of that file. So I do, whenever there's Kops upgrades or whenever major structural changes happen, I need to run up a dummy cluster to export the new YAML and do a diff comparison and blah blah blah. So something to streamline that would be appreciated.
That's great. So Kops cluster upgrade will actually, will show you the change, but it's not in a YAML format. And I think having a dry run that does a YAML format would be a great idea. All right, we've spent a long time talking about this. I don't know if there's anything else, but anything else on that topic? Otherwise, I think we should make sure we hit the other items on the agenda.
I can just go quickly on this next item about the outreachy proposal. Paris solicited. She put out a call for mentors for it's going to be like the Google Summer of Code, but it's in the winter. And it's going to be sponsored by Outreachy, and I think Chris and Mike were the ones that spotted that. So thank you. But I was thinking that we should get some helpers or a helper, and that would be a good way to get more visibility for Kops, but also to get some help on some of these things. And I can't imagine that people are going to say no to this, but we do need to create a proposal. There is some sort of we have until the 28th, so we've got 2 weeks from today to put this together, I think. And I think I'd like to get some people to get together and put their ideas down in a doc, and we'll get it off. Is that amenable to people?
I mean, it can really be anything, right? So the support could be if the project says develop this and that feature for Kops. Like, you should really create a project. And if the project says create a feature, probably it makes sense to have people give them the requirement to go. If you say, well, it's mostly about documentation, which we could probably need lots more help as well, would also make quite good sense if they just need some technical expertise to just go through it and write stuff down. We just need to think of a project and just spec that out, create some issues in the project, and label them with good first issue that people that can actually use that to, if I got it right, to apply. So they try to solve something in order to apply for the project. On the other side, of course, well, someone needs to pay these people. So if any of your companies has 6.5 grand to spend, I think, feel free to do so. Outreachy is some kind of nonprofit, so it helps you with their tax as well if you want to do it privately, I think. Anyways, so it's just like getting some help and maybe also some visibility. I know the CLI ZIG is going to participate. Paris is pushing it quite bad. But yeah, if no one is actually like, I think we have enough mentors. We just need to spec it out.
Yeah, I think that I've started to whenever I've been doing some issue triage and such, and trying to drop good starter issues on things. That'll get us going, at least in that side. But please, when you're writing issues, like if it's something that makes sense, to tag it that way, so that it's easy to find. I think as far as documentation, like I think that's not like the best. I mean, I would love to have somebody help us with documentation, but I think it's going to be a tough task for some. I think it might be a very tough task for somebody that was pretty junior, because there's a lot of like sort of like structural, like editorial choices that need to be made. I think is that like I think we need like major changes, not little changes in docs. But I do think that there's a lot of ways that we could have somebody help out with code. And I think that yeah, I think we should dive into this head first.
I agree. So the ask is that we define projects that are possibly suitable. Is that right?
Yeah. So we have two. I think there are two basic pieces to this. One is we need to create some sort of like short list of projects or tasks that we could have interns work on. The other is to have something so that people that are interested in applying for the project have a way to get their foot in the door. So it's like good starter issues, places to just get their name in there.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, and I'll also talk to Paris and see. Yeah, that sounds great.
And we have an email copy of this thing. I don't have a copy of it except in Slack, but would one of you, Chris or Mike, put it into like a Google Doc that we can start working on? We can record our work there and share it with the group.
I think it needs to be in Markdown, but we can just start working in a Google Doc, or we just.
Why don't we just make a directory in the repo?
Yeah, probably. I was thinking about the directory, or maybe even just a gist in the project or something like that. Like we just need a text editor after all.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
so
one of the requirements is to create.
Yeah,
is to create a page just like this. They say as an example. But yeah, I can throw it in somewhere.
Okay. Yeah, this looks great. And so they do, and they have a list of handpicked issues. Oops. Somewhere. Okay.
Well, this is, I think that was their last year's, so maybe they're out of date.
Okay. Yeah, that is last year's. Yeah. Okay. All right. That is great. Thank you. Should we move on to the next thing? Rodrigo, you have a shared security group PR.
Yeah, so it's pretty much the one you created, plus the one Chris created, plus the ELB security group changes, so it's massive. Thanks, Chris and Eric, for taking a look at it. So quick thing, Justin, after talking to Eric, we kind of want some guidance from you. One of the things that we're not super happy about is because we already have additional security groups than the security groups that we create. We're wondering if there's any way to clean this up so we don't have yet another spec that's out there that defines security groups that people can get confused with. So we're wondering if there's a way to consolidate all of those. I couldn't think of any clean way to do it. I'm wondering if you can.
I mean, I think additional security groups is a nice thing to have, right? Additional security groups is when you want to give more permissions.
Yep.
And so to me, they are different. This is like using additional security groups is basically pretty safe.
Mm-hmm.
The security group is going to be pretty complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe security group over the security group.
Security group override.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think whether we bother having the word override in there, but yes, this is an override of the security group. So that is, like, to me, it is different. So
I could be convinced on that way if we went to something like override. I think, I don't like my proposal anymore. So just sorry.
I don't think we need to, because of that, I'm not uncomfortable with the idea of having 2 fields.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was the naming that was like hanging me up. And I think I think security groups and additional security groups is like less than ideal, but I think having security groups override or something and additional security groups is fine for me.
Okay.
And I can, is that okay with you, Justin? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually happy with security group. I think, but yeah, we could do primary security group or override security group is clear as to what we're actually doing, and that it is actually very, like, it also seems dangerous, whereas additional seems like, yeah, put more on the pile, whereas it override is clearly like I'm bypassing cops.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm happy with security group, additional security groups, but I think override security group, additional security groups also makes it like even more clear that you probably don't want to set override security group unless you really know what you're doing.
Okay, I'll go with override security group then.
And I'll have a look at the PR anyway before the rename, and depending on, well, I'll have a look at it regardless, and I'll link any comments.
All right, thank you.
This would be lovely to have.
You have the same use case where you want to effectively reduce the permission?
This is not an unusual request, except for in Justin's world. I think most people seem to run into these sorts of things, and it's good work, Rodrigo. I was just trying to make sure we were kind of future proofing and making sure we're not doing things.
Yep. Thanks again for looking at it.
I'm about to write something that will run after Kops to zero out the security groups that Kops creates.
In there.
Okay. Message taken. Yes, I'm not opposed to the idea. The thing I want to be careful about is making it that we make it very obvious when people are not relying on Kops to do like the setup, and so if there is a networking problem, we want to be able to say, well, like, you set this field, it's very likely that it is relating to this field, and we want to see that quickly, rather than just have some sort of invisible, like, have it be more invisible.
Yeah, I think Eric mentioned that as well in his comments. He asked me to log something very verbosely that what you're doing is probably going to break this, and if it does, I'm sorry, we're not at fault for it. You're going to have to go figure it out on your own.
Yeah, I mean, I think we do ask for the spec, and so as long as it's in the spec, that's good. I think, yeah, it would be great to have a warning. It'd be great to have, like,
yeah.
Also print
sometimes it's nice.
Sorry?
Oh yeah, I was going to say sometimes it's nice for them to have that warning, because we can pick that up very quickly if we've seen a bunch of specs that are broken like that. But having somebody say, like, just having that hint, like, is sometimes really helpful for people that don't have a good, like, hold of where they're going.
I think that's a good idea. We could also put it into Kops validate. If your Kops validate cluster fails, we could be like, here are the things that you're doing that's a little bit out of the ordinary, right?
Yeah, you're messing with your security groups. You're, like, messing with your.
You've overridden the image. Anything like that. That's, even if it's just like, here are the things that we think are the most unusual things you're doing. That could be helpful for people. But,
yeah, I don't think we even need to diff it or anything like that. Just say that, like, hey, I think it's a really good idea.
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool, but yeah, not necessarily in this PR, but yeah, I think logging or something is very reasonable, and but yeah, I'll look at that. That would be great to get in.
Awesome, thank you.
And finally, NVMe test. I am aware that I have to approve this PR. And rules go.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it up real quick. I know that you, right now, you, Justin, and Chris are the only 2 that can approve changes in test infra. So I just want to make sure it's on your radar. But if you want it a different way, we can just close it.
No, this looks. I'll just approve this. I'm not logged in for some reason, but I will approve this. And the rules go. I presume it's just updating. Yes, we should actually update those anyway. I didn't want to update it just before the release, but yes, it's time to. We should update it for 1.11. I mean, it's not even coming soon.
My original one was for for 13, then 14 came out, and I think 15 came out, and I tested it, and it didn't quite work, so I just left it at 14.
Okay, yeah. I think if I recall correctly, 14 has a good fix for reproducible builds, so it would be nice to get 14 in there.
I agree.
I'm not sure what's in 15. If I recall correctly, oh yeah, 15, oh yeah, I remember. 15 is mostly, they tweak how protobuf works.
And 15 requires a new version of Bazel, like a hard requirement. And I thought that was a little aggressive for the time being.
I don't know how many people are still building with Make versus Bazel. I suspect most people are still building with Make, but anyway, yes, we can do 14 for 111 and 15 for 112, I guess. I'm trying to remember that I did the fixes in some. Oh, I think I did the fixes in etcd manager. Because so if you're generating protobuf, 15 is a little bit of a problem. I'm surprised it broke for Kops, but we can have a look. But yeah, 14.
It's probably me.
No. You're saying it breaks on it won't which command breaks when you generate the protobuf stuff?
So what they changed was they changed the way that so when you use Bazel and you're using protobuf, it sort of implicitly imports some libraries, and those libraries might not be compatible with, say, etcd client. I think was the case in etcd manager, like a different version of like gRPC or protobuf or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. And so that's the issue, that you sort of have this like implicit versioning going on. And so I think what I did in etcd manager was I basically stopped generating protobuf using it and just.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it was expedient, I think. But yes, so it's not a big thing, but that's what's going on. I think that will get better as everyone updates, because I presume they went to the latest protobuf and gRPC and all that. And as other people update their gRPC and protobuf, that will be less of an issue. So waiting seems like a great strategy here.
And as for Make versus Bazel, I think like that's another one of these things where you have a story that this is the way you develop with Kops. So that's part of the redo in docs.
So to date, the issue has been that Bazel doesn't support the way we do.
What is it, Calico or something? Or no, it's a Weave or something, isn't it?
The gossip mode networking relies on the Weave gossip library, which used a build tag, and Bazel doesn't support Go build tags. I can't remember. I think I sent a PR, and I can't remember the status of it. That basically like hacked that away using like a sed in the make file, I think, if I recall correctly. But anyway, I think that's reasonable. But so right now, it's about a hard blocker has been that like the version you build with Bazel does not work on gossip mode. Or if you build protocube with Bazel, it doesn't work in gossip mode. So that's been a sort of hard blocker. If we can get around that, then we can switch to using Bazel. I'd like to do that because then we have reproducible builds, and it's much, much faster, and it works better in a CI environment and all that sort of stuff. Because we don't have to use Docker to build things, and Docker tends to work less well in a CI environment than like the nice Bazel rules. Anyway, for now, I think Make should be the recommended way, but I certainly, when I'm developing, will use Bazel just for the speed.
Yeah, me too. It's nice.
Yeah, I think we all basically do.
Yeah, which is annoying because we would like to have the version that we actually ship be the one that we all develop with, but there has been a blocker, so that's why I sent the slightly distasteful PR to like rewrite the Weave vendored code to be Bazel compatible, so that we can get to Bazel land. All right, it is something 57, hour 57, based on or hour plus 57 minutes. I don't know if anyone else has any last minute things they would like to add to the agenda or otherwise discuss.
I have a quick one about the last meeting if no one has anything else.
Go for it, Fred.
Okay, on the last meeting, which I missed, unfortunately, the aspect of the new AWS instance types and the ephemeral stores and whatnot came up. And I was wondering what the recommended workaround right now for mounting them and possibly using them for varlib Docker or varlib kubelet is? If you guys have any recommendations.
I don't think we have a recommendation. I don't know if someone shared a script or anything last time. I don't think anyone did, but it's certainly something that we need to do better on, but I don't think we have a clear plan of action yet, I'm afraid.
Okay, and that's fine. So then my last question is, what would be preferable, to use additional user data or the hook system?
The hook system is more likely to be, so I don't think additional user data executes. Does it Rodrigo? You wrote that, right? I would, my guess would be the hook system. If you can express it as a hook, it might be too late by the time you get there because hooks run in Docker.
Yeah, let me see. I have 1 minute left. So last question on that. Does node up actually do something or register itself as a systemd unit? Because I could try to use the hooks and before, but I don't see that systemd unit on a completely bootstrap cluster.
Node up does register itself as a systemd unit. It is called kops-configuration.
And does it unregister itself after it is done?
No, but it's one shot. So it only runs once. I think it actually runs once on every boot, which is actually what you want, but I think it runs once.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Well, I've done some things with hooks where you install, even if it runs too late, I install it and then I restart the node, which sounds a little funky, but that's how we do like the app armor hook and things like that. So there's some ways to make it work. Basically, you can run any arbitrary thing in a container. So.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Have a good week.
You too. Success.
Enjoy your weekends.
Bye, everyone. Have a great one.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Bye.